So I am an INTJ. If you don't know what the Myers-Briggs test is, it's about a 20-minute test, and it gives you different letters based on what you are. You can either be an introvert or an extrovert, sensory or intuitive, thinker or a feeler, or a judger or a perceiver. So I am an INTJ, which means that my qualities are innovative, independent, strategic, logical, reserved, insightful, and driven by original ideas to achieve improvements. Now that all sounds great on paper. It sounds brilliant. But it means that I am, very strategic, very logical, high work ethic. But it also means that I can be very impatient. I can be very emotionally distant. I can be overcritical and perfectionist because I set standards ridiculously high for myself, and I can be an overthinker. And this means that in social interactions, I find making friends quite difficult. I find certain topics and conversations quite difficult. And so sport for me was always the way to break that barrier of communication, because it was a shared hobby and a shared topic. And so when I had REDs, and it meant that I couldn't be in those social groups anymore because I'd got to the point where sport was harming me so much and I couldn't do it, I lost a lot of friends because sport had also been my social line. And that was one of the hardest parts for me. And I think it's a part that really isn't talked about enough, that you don't really see the kind of, the short-term impacts talked about. Oh, you're injured and, once you rehab, you'll get back to it quite easily. But it's that long-term impact but I've missed out on experiences, and I've missed out on friendships, and I've missed out on health and potential that I could have had. And it's almost like when you're recovering and fueling again and seeing sport as something that isn't like a mandate, you don't have to do it in your day, but it's something that should be really enjoyed again, and relearning that, you almost have to see like, well, why do I have to keep sticking potential on myself? Why do I have to keep saying, oh, I've got so much potential, so I need to run after that? And it's just such a cultural narrative that we have of like, oh, you should really achieve your potential. And it's like, well, what potential are we defining? Because if the potential is the fact that I was so obsessed with sport and exercise to the point that it harmed me, that was because I was trying to achieve some kind of ridiculous potential expectation that never actually existed and I was never going to achieve. So the INTJ, it's funny because it says the INTJ is in kind of like strategic roles like engineering, science, management. I wouldn't say I'm particularly a STEM person at all. If anything, I kind of struggle with, I'm very good with visuals and words, but I struggle with numbers. And, well, I don't really know how that's related to REDs at all, but some other parts of REDs, let's see. Oh my goodness, apparently it's the third rarest type in the population. Famous INTJs include Hillary Clinton, Stephen Hawking, Thomas Jefferson, Lance Armstrong, and Bill Gates. Honestly, I really recommend the Myers-Briggs test. It really gives a massive amount of clarity on your personality. The drawback is that it's not going to define your entire personality. You're not set in stone. You can change, you can adapt, but it almost gives you, I don't know, for me, I read it and I thought, wow, that is me on paper. And it gives you strengths and weaknesses, friendships, parenthood, career paths. It gives you a lot. So for me, some of the weaknesses that I really struggle with are being like dismissive of emotions and just going off rationality. And that for me is like, I can't give myself self-compassion. And in REDs, that's quite difficult because you need to give yourself self-compassion to be like, this wasn't my fault. This was just something that's happened, and it's okay to grieve and be sad about it. And that's part of, if I grieve now, then that means I'm going to have accepted what happened instead of it coming to haunt me maybe like 5 to 6 years later. So I really recommend, it's called 16 Personalities, and it's been very helpful for me in I've done it with my friends as well, and it's really fun to kind of discuss and see what they kind of think. It can be a really great conversation starter.